Hey everybody, you're probably checking out the clock right now and going, oh my gosh, this episode is 48 minutes long. That's right, because we haven't been with you in a while and we've missed you. So tell them what's on this episode.
So much. Guys, we actually just wanted to not only do a little bit of catching up, but we wanted to kind of dive into our personal love stories. And so we've talked about our husbands. I'm married to Danny. Julie's married to Ben. We've talked about them here and there, but we really wanted to give you the stories of like the how we met and how we went from like friendship to romance, or like just the in the know of our love stories. We're going towards Valentine's Day and thought that would be fun.
And there's definitely some really beautiful, insightful, spiritual rabbit trails in this episode.
And soapboxes. Man, have I missed a soapbox with you guys.
Tricia,
because y'all are my friends, and so I feel like I'm like, oh, they get what I'm saying. So if you don't, just pretend like you do. But we're gonna dive in, and we're so excited to be back and to spend some time with you. So I'm Tricia.
And I'm Julie.
And this is
the And She Laughs podcast.
So excited that we're back.
Yes, we have woken up from our long winter's nap. Although, I don't know if you actually got a nap. Did you get a nap?
Oh, no naps, but also when like bears wake up from their winter nap, they've used all of the stored food and fat that they stored up.
I imagine they're grumpy.
I am on the opposite end. I am still storing for spring. So maybe it's more of a hiatus than a winter's nap.
Absolutely.
But we're back. I've missed this.
I have too.
So much. But we're diving into a couple of different things. I would say that this is a little bit of a catch up just because we've missed you guys.
Yeah.
So I feel like just excuse digressions as they happen. But I think we'll have a lot of fun. So we wanted to talk, we're rolling into the month of February.
Yes.
The month of love. And so we thought it'd be fun to share a little bit of our stories of how we met our husbands and how special that was.
It was.
Yeah.
It was really special.
Yeah.
Okay, but I didn't think mine was like anything special at the time. I met
Well, that's Ben
because
you met him when
in middle school.
Yeah, and he was picking me up for a friendship dating outing, 6th grade parent thing.
Right.
To Discovery Zone. Do we have any Discovery Zone memories out there?
Raise your hand. Discovery Zone doesn't exist anymore because it was a cesspool.
I thought it was way cool. But
Chuck E. Cheese does exist. Gross.
That's weird.
That's gross.
But what I will say is, so Ben moved to Bay Minette when he was in like
7th grade.
6th grade.
6th grade.
Yes, 6th
That's
grade.
Right, 6th grade.
And he and I were friends. Like he joined my friend group pretty quick. And he and I decided that we liked each other, 6th grade. So we became 6th grade boyfriend, girlfriend. So we ended up going to Discovery Zone for his sister's birthday. And he pulled my sock off. This is offensive in the Discovery Zone world.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gross.
So we didn't work out. Tricia and Ben didn't work out.
But Tricia and Ben remained
we became
best friends.
Best friends.
And they... Look, our phones are buzzing already and we're throwing them.
Do not disturb.
Do not disturb, folks. This is an important time with our people.
Leave me alone. I have 72 text messages right now.
Hi, 14! You have much more than me, but...
14 sounds so relieving.
Yeah.
What a time to be alive.
But anyway, Tricia and Ben became like best friends, and around my junior year of high school, Ben decided that he was madly in love. No, I think in middle school, after you guys didn't work out, he definitely wanted to go out with me. He and his best friend Pate asked if they could go out with me. They wanted to,
because Julie was older. She was 2 grades higher than us.
I was older, and I had a lot less wrinkles then, and I was bubbly and cute.
You're cute and bubbly now.
I needed that.
You are.
I love you. Thanks. I'm not bubbly all the time. Sometimes I fizz. If you're listening to this in your car and all you hear is our loud cackles, man,
we are not sorry about it.
We aren't. But anyway, so the 2 guys, they decided one would be my boyfriend one day and one would be my boyfriend the next day. Yeah. And so, and then of course there were ground rules, they could only they could sit by me in the quad for break and lunch, and they could tell people that they were my boyfriend, but there was no hand holding or anything like that. That was weird. So anyway, Pate sat with me at break, and I think he asked me a lot of questions about myself, and then we ate lunch together, which was a ham sandwich that Mom had packed for me. And Pate had something because our mom packed our lunch
every day.
She packed our lunch every day.
Loved it.
All 4 kids.
Turkey sandwich with ranch on it.
She would line them up on the bar. She would wrap them, put her names on it. It was
She also
amazing.
did little notes on our sandwiches.
She always wrote us notes.
Best.
So great.
The best.
But I'm sitting there enjoying my sandwich, and I look over and he has something gross in a, thermos. And so anyway, that night, the next day was Ben's day. Ben wanted to be my boyfriend the next day. But that night, the guy I really liked, he was a football player.
Come on.
Really popular, really handsome. He called me. And he was like, hey.
This was a big deal.
I really want to be.
This was not the time of texting and cell phones.
No.
You had to call the house.
This was a spiral cord phone that connected into the kitchen and had a 50-yard cord on it.
To call a girl.
Right.
You had to say, maybe I'm going to talk to her dad.
It's possible. Or anyone in the family. So the phone picks
Big
up.
Deals.
You know what I'm saying? And you have to go, hello, this is so-and-so. May I please speak to so-and-so? That was phone manners. Yeah. I mean, I remember Mom sitting us down and teaching etiquette. Us phone manners. And he called my house. And he said, hey, this is so-and-so. Can I speak to Julie? And Mom comes in and she goes, Julie, this is so-and-so. And I was like, wah, wah, wah. You know what I mean? And it was like,
and little sister's like, score.
So anyway, I was like, yes. So the next day I was like, hey, no, Ben, no. You're not my boyfriend today. Anthony is. Sorry. So Ben loves to tell that story. He loves to tell everyone how he may have not gotten his day, but he got his forever.
Cute.
Yeah. But I came home from my freshman year of college. I've told this story. Came home my freshman year of college, and I was really beat up, super broken, healing from an abortion.
That
was
one
a lot.
Of my favorite.
Oh,
wait for
gosh.
It. Is that
there are more because
there's so many.
Ben pined after me.
He did.
The entire high school. He really loved me.
So what's funny is Julie got sick. And I think Ben must have just gone through his house and wondered, what could I do for my fair maiden?
You just said fair maiden.
And he showed up at our house.
He did.
With frozen steaks.
Yeah.
Do you remember this?
How could I forget? He said, like a normal guy, he said this to me, as I can barely move with tissue tampons hanging out of my nose. I am dying of the flu, and I'm laying in bed.
I hate it when you and Mom say tampon tissues. For those of you who are not watching in person, that's where you create with a tissue a stopper for your runny nose.
And you stick it in there.
Stick it in your nostrils.
And you just let it, it stops everything. I didn't say a tissue tampon. I said tampon tissue. Just to be clear. So, anyway, I'm laying in this bed. Okay. I'm laying in the bed. I'm dying of the flu. And Ben comes and sits next to me with frozen steaks in his hand. And he goes, Julie, any guy can bring a girl flowers. And I was like, okay. I mean, I barely remember the thing. I barely remember the whole.
Right, you were very sick.
But then he was also like, I want to play you this song. Okay. Also, this is not the era of cell phones where you go, let me pull up Spotify and play you a song. No, he had burned a CD. So he goes over to my boombox.
Gosh, Pursuit was so different.
And he had burned this CD with this song on it, and he played me this song. While I am laying there, almost dead of the flu. Like, hanging halfway out of the bed with the things we won't mention hanging out of my nose. And burning up with fever. With frozen steaks. And he said any guy could buy flowers, but a real man brings steak. And that was that.
That's sweet.
And he told me, that he was going to marry me. And I said, get out.
Now, Julie you've heard her testimony. She had a lot going on.
Always.
There was party girl, and Ben did, while Ben had experienced like personal revival at his church. And so he was like genuinely seeking the Lord as a high schooler. And so there was a little while there that because he and I won't say we were the only Christians in our class. I will say
you're definitely the only ones who are actually living for Christ.
There weren't a lot, is what I would say, and we were probably definitely as far as our group goes, we were kind of the ones trying to get other people saved, if you will.
Absolutely.
And I think for a while there, because Julie was so far gone for a little while, Ben did start asking me out. There's a lesson here, because you definitely can try to create God's path when you see something good. Good does not mean God. I was a good option. I was not the God option. And I actually had never been on a date and actually had no desire to go on a date. But my dad was concerned about that. He was very concerned that I had never been on a date. So Ben had asked me on a date. I had said no. I was talking to my parents about it. And my dad was like, Ben's a great guy. Ben's a great guy. You should just try it, Trish. You don't even know. You've never been on a date. You don't know if you like him or not. And I was like, no, I feel pretty sure. Like we're good friends, but I did say yes. We went and saw How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days.
Yeah.
Seemed profound. We also went to Wendy's and got a Frosty, and we dipped our fries in the Frosty. And we were like, we're just friends.
Yeah.
We're sure. Which means that we also became a safe dance option for each other.
Yes, dance dates.
Because
safe dance dates. Absolutely.
So Ben has been my brother for a long time, but I use this as an example of like, wow, you can really try to make God's path. And y'all have heard us talk about that so many times.
Absolutely. You can even get really close. Like DNA. Super close.
Literally.
Super close.
Mannerisms. You know what I'm saying?
All them things.
All them things. But I like, when you see what you were actually created for, it's like, now I'm talking about myself and what I almost settled for. And I'm like, oh man, I really almost got that wrong. But Julie, you've heard her testimony on like our second episode about coming home from college.
Yes.
And
Ben inviting us to church. I got radically saved.
Yep.
And then I fell in love with Ben like less than 2 months later. So
there's actually a picture of sophomore in college, Julie, and she has this long blonde hair that has been hot rolled because there was no other way to do your hair. But these luscious curls, they go all the way down her back, all the way. And Ben is hugging her, and her hair's just cascading down. And I'm like, oh, he got his fair maiden.
And it was the night I got saved.
It was the night I got saved.
But I came in, gave him a hug. People were snapping pictures of what was happening in ministry that night. And that was the night I got radically saved. So, cool beans. I have that.
July 31st.
Yes.
2003. That's my birthday. So then y'all dated for
long time.
And then
5 years.
The ministry school that we went to had some very strong.
Say it one more time.
Strong.
There it is.
Standards for dating.
Yes.
So Ben had felt called to go to this place, so Ben went.
Yes, he did.
He
left me for a year.
But he was required to break up with her. Yes. They broke up. They were allowed 1 10-minute phone call a week.
1 hour phone call a week. On Sunday evenings.
At which most time they spent crying the whole time.
Yes, because we missed each other so much.
Those were awful. I was like sitting in her room like petting her while she like cries.
Yeah, the first 2 you did that. That third one you were like, I'm out.
Yeah.
Just have it. Go.
Oh, be blessed. And then you went up there.
I did. I felt called to ministry school, and I went up to ministry school.
And y'all started doing kingdom work.
Yes.
You know? Which y'all had already really done that here.
In youth ministry.
Mm-hmm. But really got to start doing the day-to-day and dreaming. And,
yes.
So they are at Forerunner School of Ministry, and there was this really cute Asian guy that was at this school of ministry, an Asian from North Dakota.
Yes.
So backing up for me, Ben was my first date. Whether you want to call that the Discovery Zone one, or you want to call that 10 guys, 10 days.
10 days. How to lose a guy to that one. Matthew McConaughey.
I'm still on blood pressure medicines, and sometimes my words just trip, and sometimes they just like traffic jam, and I just awkwardly stare at you while saying nothing. We're having good times.
I'm glad she has blood pressure medicine as her excuse for that. I'm sitting here going, that's called Tuesday.
Well, I'm calling it blood pressure medicine. Can't blame that. My hair is falling out. I avoided.
Again, that's called Tuesday. I'm 40.
I avoided not all, but most postpartum things I avoided with Jude. I didn't lose my hair. I really didn't feel, I had hormonal things, but I didn't feel too strong of like emotional highs and lows.
I definitely think that's the difference of a boy and a girl.
Maybe. There was so many differences. But because
that's all I had.
I am losing my hair. Yeah. So I got this rosemary castor oil.
I've got it.
Stuff.
Good luck.
Got myself a bonnet, didn't I? 2 nights ago, we go to get in bed. And Danny goes, how long are we doing the bonnet thing? I was like,
friends.
But if I tilt my head like this, you can see some thinness. But also, even though I washed my hair today, it still feels oily because I soaked it in castor oil and rosemary all night. So it's just a fun thing.
So Tricia's 38.
I am.
When I go to bed, I look like the Loch Ness monster. Okay, oils in my hair, bonnet on, frownies on my face, beef tallow all over the rest of it, and then my infrared mask. Infrared mask I don't wear the whole night, of course, but a little bit. And I look like RoboCop meets Loch Ness Monster. I don't know how anyone is intimate at night when they have to be a 40-year-old. I don't. It's disgusting. I look ridiculous. Okay? Is it working?
Yes.
Maybe.
Your skin looks great.
It's the beef tallow.
The beef. Okay, well, that could be worth an incorporation.
Anyway, back to the story.
So
Tricia was going through her wild era. Oh, we haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah. So did the date with Ben. That was my first date.
That's the first date.
It was like, man. And it really was a spiritual commitment. Even as a 16-year-old, it was, I really don't want to date until I have like found my husband. And so the revival that Julie got like saved in was also a personal revival for me. God woke up a lot, taught me a lot. And so I'm going to this youth group, and I'm like spiritually in a place that I've never been. And we had a Christmas party, and our youth pastor introduced me to a recent Teen Challenge graduate. If you don't know what Teen Challenge is, it is
an incredible spiritual program for those who are recovering from drug and alcohol abuse.
Yes. And it is amazing.
Usually on the other side of that, when a guy gets out of Teen Challenge, there's Teen Challenge for women too, but when an individual gets out of there, they are usually so on fire for the Lord.
Yes.
Holy Spirit filled.
Very much.
And usually called into recovery ministry.
Yes, very much so. Yeah. And that is this guy that I met via youth group. He was a worship leader, played guitar. He was covered in tattoos.
The boy could play anything.
He could play anything. He had a
he
beautiful
could sing
voice.
Anything. He could
Beautiful
sing
voice.
the phone book. Yeah, that's what this phrase. He could sing the phone book, and he'd be like, wow,
like anointed, truly anointed.
Yes.
And I was like, Tricia, who had been on one date, arguably two if we include 6th grade, and I, I had never had a serious boyfriend outside of like we're boyfriend girlfriend for a week and we held pinky like in 8th grade or whatever. I'd never had a serious boyfriend, and never been out, and here was this recovering drug addict, covered in tattoos, praising the Lord, and I was like, that's him. He was introduced to me by my youth pastor. Look how God works. Won't he do it? And so I actually went on a date to Bellingraph Gardens.
Ben and I went.
No.
This is
my youth pastor,
that's right.
and my youth
yep.
pastor and his
friend,
non-girlfriend, which is a whole nother topic for a whole nother day.
Indeed.
Non-dating. That's the soapbox you don't want to hear me on.
Me either.
Strong soapbox. Anyway.
Non-dating, talking.
Dating. So I did enter into a relationship with him. I was very prayerful. And I felt like God had told me that I was going to marry him, which is why I allowed mistakes into that relationship. I made a lot of mistakes, and I was introduced to, and when I say introduced to, it was physical stuff. I thankfully was a virgin when I got married, but I had a lot of things that I had to share with my husband because of things that I had allowed in lust and in love. And I could see that this person, that my boyfriend, was definitely like digressing. We had even had, he had given me a promise ring, and we had had this. It was definitely more of a conversation, not like necessarily a proposal, where we were like, hey, we're going to be like secretly engaged until, we're ready. Because my parents were against how serious the relationship was. And they had some strong reservations about the person.
Yeah.
And they
as did her sister.
Yes. And that's because the strong spiritual high that he had come out of Teen Challenge with did begin to dwindle pretty quick. And he started having conversations with me that I did not understand. I'd never even seen weed, And so for him to tell me how he was craving it, and I'm going, no, I remember one time getting in his car and looking in the console for something and seeing cigarettes, and I was absolutely devastated. And I was like, anyway, all these things, also being young, like I'm 18 going into 19. We were together about a year and a half, and feeling like God has told me I'm going to marry this person. So trying to shoulder the burden of his starting to be reintroduced to his struggles and addictions. The first time I saw weed, I had surprised him. He was living in Destin, and I had surprised him and gone down to see him. And I was like, you've ruined me. I broke up with him. With the intent of him changing for me, and as our breakup being a wake-up call to revival with the Lord. But in the breakup, it was, in my heart, it was not a real breakup. It was, I'm drawing the line because things are not good.
Yeah.
And this is going to be his wake-up call. I was not his wake-up call because I wasn't his. And he did not get closer to the Lord. And I was still waiting for him to get closer to the Lord. And so I could make the argument that he ultimately broke up with me because I was like, we were on the phone one night and I was just asking, like, what you doing? Like, and I said, do you see yourself trying to pursue the Lord and see us together? And he was like, I don't. And I was devastated. I went in and sat. My dad was in a recliner, and I went in as a 19-year-old. I crawled in his lap and just sobbing. I was like, what is happening? I'm so confused. And because I'm thinking about all the things that I had given and offered because I thought this was God's choice for me.
Right.
But even if you think somebody is God's choice for you, that's not an allowance of sin in a relationship.
So true.
So God never meant for the mistakes to happen in this relationship. And I actually ended up going on a dating fast, that I didn't fully stick to because I was 19, insecure, and lonely.
Let's bounce back to that really quick, Trish, because I think that's a really good point. I think we have so many young men and women who are still not married who listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important that we harp on that because we know ministry students who are called to serve the Lord who are making a lot of mistakes in relationships where they feel like they're called to that person for life. And
so let me give you some context to why we allow those mistakes. Number one is going to be a lack of trust in the Lord. I know that you're going to want to say that it's love and it's attracting to no. If you trusted that this was who God had for you, you would wait on his goodness and his blessing.
Amen.
There's a lack of trust and there's a lack of patience. And so you make mistakes, and for girls, there is a control aspect. It's a power play. It's when you have a fight, this is and it's glue, and that's what the Bible meant for it to be.
That's what God meant for it to be.
That's the original design
of intimacy is to be glue between two people.
But the impatience is truly a lack of trust. And if I could be so bold, it is 100%.
You can.
It is a lack of the fear of the Lord.
Yes.
You have decided that he's going to forgive you. He's ultimately going to bless what you've chosen. These things, like his forgiveness is always available. He is not going to bless your sin. It's not going to happen.
Right.
David, described as a man after God's own heart, wrote over 50 of our Psalms, defined what worship is literally for the entire world and earth. A man after God's own heart. He messed up. God gave him forgiveness. His child died.
Yes.
You experience brokenness.
Yes.
As consequence for sin.
Absolutely.
There is always forgiveness, but you do experience consequence. And to be very honest with you, when we are in the middle of mistakes, there is a lack of the fear of the Lord.
Yeah.
And in the Psalms, David talks about this so much because he recognized his own lack of fear for the Lord because he went for what his eyes saw.
Yeah.
And when we are like, oh, me and my boyfriend are messing up, but God's good all the time. God is good all the time. He cannot bless our sin.
And I think a lot of times we have this like mentality that if we repent, then God rescues us from our sins. What we think that means is that carte blanche, he takes away the earthly ramifications of what is caused by sin. That is so untrue.
Yeah, that's not
it. It is so untrue. He blesses us with the ramifications of sin to teach us not to do it again. Because sin equals pain. Yeah. And sin equals distance from the Lord.
Separation.
And so when he allows us to walk through that, it teaches us to need him. I so often tell people, I am so thankful for my past. It is the limp that I walk with. It is what makes me need Jesus desperately. It reminds me of that, when the shepherd would go out in the field and it had a lamb that would run from him and run into danger and run into danger and run into danger, the shepherd would break the lamb's leg. Yeah. And the shepherd would put that lamb over his neck and he would carry that lamb until the leg healed. And then the lamb would never leave the shepherd's side again. It was a kindness. Yeah. So that lamb would not get mauled to death by a bear or fall off a freaking cliff. Thank God for my limp. Yeah. Thank God for my limp. And I ask him all the time. I'm going through a season right now where I'm like, Lord, are you tethering me to you? Are you breaking my leg? Break it. Break it good. But
I don't know if I'm as spiritual to be like, go ahead and break it. I'm like, are we so far gone that I can't just walk with you back?
Can I come on back?
Back to inline.
Can I come on back? But as I think even in this scenario we're talking about, we all lack trust in the Lord. And so we try to fix things in our own power. Yeah. And it is sin. Yes. It is sinful. And we try to fix things.
I don't want to make it sound like all of our problems were this guy's problem. I had a very legalistic view. I talked about in my testimony in episode 3 that I was a rule follower, but I didn't have as much relationship with my ruler. And so I tried very hard to fix the symptoms of sin and not the heart. I didn't know how to fix the heart. So I kind of was like waiting for him to like pursue the Lord and feel like the internal correction that only the Lord can do. But I definitely was like legalistic and nagging in my like,
that's really good.
What are you doing? Why are you doing this? What are you like? I don't understand. You're going to lose me. You're going to lose me if you don't get it. Were those things like true? Yeah. Did I do them very poorly? I did them very poorly. But all of that did equal into, I really was not graced for him or his walk, and he wasn't graced for mine. And that was something that I struggled with for a really long time because I thought God told me that I was going to marry him. But went through that breakup. Shortly after that, I lost my best friend in a car accident. 18-wheeler ran over a Volkswagen Beetle that she was in the backseat of. I went through a pretty dark phase. That was when I really started like clubbing and,
and wearing really large pants.
Like cargo. Like if I could put another zipper somewhere.
Like you could fit a family of 4 in her pants.
I don't know why I was so like
Chinko.
emo.
Is it Chinko? Chinko pants?
Yeah, sure. I don't know. But I was supposed to go
and a lot of eyeliner.
So much, man. I loved a smoky. I still do. But I was scrunching my hair all the time, lots of curls, because it was a little wild, you know what I'm saying? So
beautiful.
And,
there ain't nothing wrong with that.
Ain't nothing wrong with that, except it makes me a little bit sassier. If I have curly hair and a top bun, when I'm like talking to somebody, that top bun is just like, yeah, girl, you say that. And I'm just like, like it's not not great. But I was supposed to go to Florida with a friend, have like a party week for my spring break, and she canceled. And so I called Julie and I was complaining about it. And Julie was like, you could come up to Birmingham and stay with me. I knew immediately that was going to require a wardrobe change with what I had required, what I had packed in my spring break party suitcase. I'll also say in this that your rebellion can look very different. So it's easy for me to like be like, wow, I've never been drunk. Way to go, Tricia. But my struggle was the breakup emphasized insecurity that I had harbored my entire life. And so once I got out of a relationship where I had been loved and told how beautiful I was and all these things, I needed that. And so my addiction became clubs. I loved the male attention. I loved the attention I could get with my body. I loved that there wasn't a commitment to it, that I could see an effect that I had on people that I danced with, and then I could just leave them. And I could convince myself that I wasn't crossing as many lines.
That's what I was going to say. I think, and Tricia convinced herself, because to you and me, I mean, she's not going home with anyone and having one night stands. She's not drinking. She's not doing all of these like very obvious sins, but it was a lifestyle of sin.
And this is a spirit of religion that convinced me that I was still holding on to standards and rules, specific lines, and I was only crossing these lines in this area, but it wasn't like so bad as like other people that I knew.
Absolutely.
So wasn't that bad, but it was definitely dark. And so I went up to Birmingham, and I got there, and it was the campus days, and they had a speaker in named Jeannie Mayo. She preached this message, I've talked about it, called Coming Out of Your Darkness, and I went through some life change. When I got
radical life change, it was amazing.
When I got to the office, where all of the students were to see Julie for the first time, I had on a very low cut shirt. I heard one of the guys be like, bounce, which in the ministry world means don't look at that girl, either look at the floor or look at the ceiling. I knew what it meant. I'd read the book Every Young Man's Battle. And I literally was like, oh my God, I'm going to be surrounded by all of these super spiritual little boys that can't even handle a low-cut shirt. Obviously, bad mental spot. But it actually made me laugh that none of the guys would make eye contact with me. And we ended up the next day in like a service, and I had met Danny. I thought he was cute, but he was in that super saved world of Ben's ministry friends. And so there wasn't a lot of interest per se. So I'm there, and I end up, Julie places me like at a greeter spot by the door because I was hanging out with the college students, not with like the recruits. And so Danny's like, hey, how's it going? And I went, I don't know why everybody's being so nice to me. I am not coming to this school. And Danny goes, okay. Well, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I said, quote, Tricia's doing what Tricia wants to do right now. Ew. But that's what I said.
Tricia was like cayenne pepper with a little bit of sriracha and some grated ghost pepper.
Yeah.
She was like,
hair still smelled like the smoke from the club the day before. Like it was, so
she's so sassy.
But Julie saw us communicating, and so she walked up to Danny and was like, do you like my sister? And Danny said, there's more to a girl than a pretty face, and she doesn't have it.
Oh, yeah.
This started a little bit of a battle of wits. Danny and I, there was like an attraction. Like I thought he was cute, and I knew that.
Oh, and a battle of wits, man! You guys,
man,
the sarcasm.
So, just for the record, he called me Satan. He didn't call me Tricia. He called me Satan, and I called him Anal Pretty Boy. We didn't like each other. There was a. But I did get called into ministry. God did call me there. I sent an email to the entire school, to every student, thanking them for loving on me. And Danny asked his program director for permission to email me back. And the program director's name was Brigham. Good old Brigham.
Sweet Brigham.
And Brigham kind of laughed, and he went, you know, Danny, I think she is your prophetic destiny. So yeah, you can email her back. And Danny's like, whoa, that's really not what I was looking for.
I was just going to email this girl and be like, glad you're,
but that's how
not rude
strict
anymore.
The rules were. You didn't reply to an email from a female, like, without permission. I got there and we did, so we had these games that we played during orientation week. And one of them was called the question game. Question game is one of my favorite games to play.
It's really fun.
Because you have to have a conversation in complete questions. So it's, how are you?
How are you?
You can't repeat a question.
No, that's right. Gosh, I'm terrible at this game. Tricia loves it. And so does Danny, because they're so smart.
Which is how it ended up. It was a guys versus girl game. And once you eliminate somebody, you go to the back of the line. And it ended up, there's like 50 students. Uh-huh. I had knocked out every guy and Danny had knocked out every girl. There's like major competition in the room because it's guys versus girls. And it ends up everybody's out except for me and Danny. And so they're like, all right, Trish, you can start.
And Trish is still working on being saved.
Definitely. And they're like, Trisha, you can start. And I said, do you think I'm pretty? And you could hear like a gasp in the room because this is not allowed. This is not a conversation that you are allowed to have. But I noticed Danny is standing there and his knee starts bumping. And I was like, oh my God, he does. And he goes, do you care if I think you're pretty? And I looked up very thoughtfully and I was like, is that hell freezing over? And Danny goes, yeah, I'm out. And so the girls are like, yes! And that was my first time getting corrected by the dean of girls.
She got called
for
in.
my inappropriate conversation skills. But I, at that point, was like, he definitely thinks I'm cute. He traveled a lot that summer to different camps. We did not see each other.
Yeah.
But when we did see each other, like at prayer and all the things, like there was definitely a draw. And at the end of that summer, we approached Pastor Pat, our president, and said that we had feelings for each other. We then had to fast each other for 3 weeks and come back from the fast with a 5-page paper on why God was leading us into that relationship and how it was going to end in our courtship was going to end in marriage. If you want to know if somebody's serious about you before even dating, let them write a 5-page paper about you. I'll be very honest, since we're, older and can't get in trouble. I was told to go to the offices to get some ice for a picnic, and I definitely used that key to get into the president's office, and I read Danny's paper. And it was so smart, and it was so good, and I was like, wow, sounds like a blubbering idiot. Gosh. But anyway, I still have it. I have his paper about me, and I have my paper about him, which is actually really cool. But
I bet people are listening to this thinking, what?
Yeah, but you know what?
What?
God called me there, and God called me to him. So
it's true.
Whatever it takes. I think
it's true.
In today's world, we'd be like, that's stupid. I'm not doing that. But I was doing that.
Yeah.
I was doing that because I was called to that place, and I knew that I was called to that man. And I actually remember that in the door frame, I thought that I heard the Holy Spirit say I was going to marry him. But one, I had thought I heard that before, and I was wrong. So I was like, And two, the actual thoughts that went through my head when I heard the Holy Spirit say I was going to marry him, I went, ugh, he's so, clean. Which sounds weird, but that's the word that came through. I think that I recognized spiritually how pure he was. Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't covered in tattoos.
He wasn't. Still is.
Still has no tattoos.
But during our courtship, we were allowed one date every other Sunday night. It could last 3 hours. We were allowed 12 text messages a day. This is in the time of 160 characters. So you that wasn't a sound effect. If you're not watching, that was me. I can do that with my mouth.
Yeah. And Ben and I were doing the same thing,
They were doing
guys.
the same thing.
Ben and I were doing the same thing.
And so we had been dating or in a courtship for 4 months the first time we said, I love you.
Yeah.
We had been...
Can I tell the audience really quick what this does for you? It makes you incredibly intentional about what you are saying.
Yes.
You get 12 text messages. You get what, 160 characters, you said? 160 characters. It makes you incredibly intentional.
You use the letter U, not the word Y-O-U.
But you're going, I have 160 characters. I am going to make this text message count. I'm not just going to send you, what are we having for lunch? Are we going to lunch? You're not sending that. It is a massive text message every time, and you're saying everything that you need to say.
Also,
and it's so intentional.
With the intention, there's a spiritual responsibility because you're eliminating casual. So it's not like, do you think I'm pretty? I don't have time for that.
It's so good.
And so...
it's not for everybody. I'm not saying it's for everybody, but it's definitely what we were called to.
But I do think that God calls us to higher standards, and we don't choose them, and then we wonder why we're not blessed, and we wonder why our relationships are absolute hell. And some of that is not because of a consequence. Some of that is like your actual walk. Look at Job. I'm not saying that bad equals rebellion, but I am saying that sometimes we have invited sin or the breaking of standards that have been asked of us,
compromise.
Compromise. Yes. We allow it, and then we're like, why isn't my story as gushy as blah blah blah? And comparison does come in because the door to sin is open. But we had been in a courtship for 5 months,
and that's called a soapbox.
The first time that we frontal hugged. I got to be really honest with y'all. If you are in love with a person and you frontal hug them for the first time after 5 months, that is the most stimulating frontal hug you will ever experience in your life. And people ask me how I got engaged so fast, and this is it. This is it. Because 1 month later, we kissed for the first time, and 3 months later, I was engaged because we held the line.
Yeah.
Can't say we're perfect. I loved scratching that man's face. We'd be riding down the road and I'd be like, watch what I can do. I was awful to that man. But there was a lot of attraction, and there was a lot of built up attraction because we were really trying to follow the rules. I actually do feel like I tried pretty hard to get him to break a rule for me. I really that man. Loves God.
He does.
But we were engaged. We got married. And the morning after we got married, I woke up and I was alone in my marriage bed. And I looked over, and Danny had pulled a wicker chair up to the French doors in the bed and breakfast, the room that we were in. And he had his Bible out. And he set that standard 17 years ago. January 12th was my 17-year anniversary. And that his pursuit of the Lord was going to be stronger than his pursuit of me. And there have been seasons where I have gone through insecurity, and that's been hard. But it has also been the rock of our marriage.
Yeah, for sure.
Being able to say that I can truly ask him if he's prayed about something, and that prayer changes the way that we fight. We do not always get it right, And I think that this would be good. Next week, we really want to go into
what works for us.
What are some things that have worked in these relationships and these fun stories, and what are some things that have really created a downward spiral, some issues. So those are our love stories.
There are.
Those are
the highlights of our love stories.
And I know it's a little bit longer, but we've missed you, and we love talking about our guys. So
we love you guys. You guys tune in again. We love you
next week here on the And She Laughs podcast.
Bye.